Hey guys, it's Matt with Olympus Reptiles. Today we're going to do an update video on my good buddy Sobek, the Dwarf Caiman. The water doesn't look too bad in there, but trust me, it is. He made a big mess in this cage and we're not going to let the filter handle all that, so it's time to clean all the gravel and do the whole 9 yards. Hopefully you can see he's grown quite a bit if you watch our first video. He's doing pretty wonderful, and we're not going to make you watch us clean the tank, but we will show you how we get him out. Which there's a couple different ways of handling these guys, so we'll kind of show you how we do things for now. We may not be able to do it that way when he gets bigger, and we'll go from there. So the next thing we're going to have to do is go ahead and start getting this Dwarf Caiman out of there. Don't mind my thing here. It's going to get a little darker in the cage because we are going to have to shut everything off. And the reason for that is we're going to clean everything anyway, so we're going to go ahead and take the full top off the cage. Excuse me. Give me just a little bit more room to work. Okay. And we are going to relocate the Dwarf Caiman in to this locking tub. We'll try to get a weight on him. We got him in there. And we'll share that weight with you guys. Now what I like to do is I use this stick here. No, we're not going to beat the Caiman. This is kind of a guide stick. Helps me to move him where I want him to go, and it helps him to keep from him slinging his head to the side where my hand is. So, because he's not always the friendliest guy, as you can see, he's thinking he's going to eat, I think. Hey, come on. So as you can see, what we tend to deal with, and he may not want to come out there. See, he made a mess right there too. But unfortunately, today, it's not going to be up to him. We will have to remove him, whether he wants to or not. And he's going to obviously make that quite difficult today. Typically, once I can get him in my hand, which isn't always the easiest thing to do, one of the ways you can do it is you can just grab him like right behind the head there. We're going to try to avoid doing that. I think it's more stressful for them. I don't want to do that. I'd rather him set in my hand and pick him up that way, which means we take our time. And he has to realize that, no, we're not going to hurt him. It's actually probably the worst he's ever behaved doing this. Come on, buddy. There you can see. And there we are, done and done. With a little bit of drama. He did go ahead and bite the stick. What we will do, we'll give him just a little bit of water in there too. Just so he doesn't have to worry about getting dry. Kind of like that. Then we're going to seal him up. We'll get a weight on the whole tub, and then we'll weigh it again with him out of there to get the exact weight. But for right now, we're going to go ahead and shut the video down and come back when we're ready to put the Caiman back in the cage. Alright guys, so we've got the cage all taken care of. The filter's back running, so everything's running, getting the water back warm. And we're ready to reintroduce our Caiman into the environment. We did take the weight, and how we do this is we weigh the entire tub with the water and with the Caiman, which came out to 3,974 grams. It is a pain to do that. And then when we remove him, we'll put him in there, and we'll weigh it again, and then we'll subtract the difference. And that'll give us a weight on our Caiman. We might be off by 5 or 10 grams, you know, but we'll be pretty close. A couple things I do want to point out if you want to come in here and get kind of a close-up. We had a few people questioning, is it palpebrosus? Is it trigonatus? How do you know? Etc., etc. And I appreciate those questions. I'm going to show you how we know this is palpebrosus. Not just because, one, it was captive bred as palpebrosus, but when you look, and his scales on his back are not really the best example for palpebrosus, but in a Cuvier's, which is a palpebrosus, the scales will be in nice straight lines along the back. And trigonatus, which is, you know, your wedge heads, they're a mess. They're kind of like really random, and you can see he's got some marks along here that would almost make you think that's random, but most of those are pretty good. Another very good indicator for trigonatus versus palpebrosus is the tail. And what you want to look for in the tail scales is if you look at his tail here, and this will be a good example. I could put the stick there, and you see how those scales, they're mostly sticking up, where they're kind of like this. That's indicative of palpebrosus. Trigonatus stick mostly out to the side. So if his scales are sticking out to the side, more, I guess, horizontal, then that would be an indication of a trigonatus. More up and down is an indication of a palpebrosus. The head shape is a little different. They tend to have a higher ridge on the top of the head here, for the Cuviers, which he has a very good example of. And then there's also some bone structure that is different in the head, but I can't really point that out to you without skinning him, and we're not going to do that because I really like this little guy. The jaw markings below his jaw, the color pattern there, with the splotching and like the banding almost, where it's like a dark splotch white, dark splotch white, is indicative of also palpebrosus. And if we could see his belly, and maybe we can, let's try to pick him up. Going overhead here, and see how the belly has a lot of black in it? The trigonatus will be a more white belly. That patterned black belly is another good indication of Cuviers. There's some good online research sites that can show you the difference with both of them laying side by side. Most of them are dead specimens that they're using to point out, and they do point out the skull structure. I had the same questions when I got him, just making sure he was what I was told he was. And not that it would have been a huge deal if he wasn't. I was chasing the Cuviers for the size, being that they're smaller. But he was in fact Cuvier's, and I was very confident in that after doing my research. So, if you have questions about that, please feel free to hit me up. What we're going to do now is we're going to try to get him back in the cage. This is probably one of the hardest parts in working with these guys. Again, I could just reach him like a cat, grab him right behind the neck and force it, but I really don't want to do that. We're trying to work with him and have him realize that I'm not his enemy. I don't think we're ever going to be best friends, but I'm hoping that if I'm gentle in what I do now, then when he's a big, between 3.5 and 5 feet, it'll be a little easier for me to work with him. They are smart. There have been huge crocodilians that have even showed bonding with people. Not that I recommend you try to do that, but my hope is we can at least get a little bit of trust where he knows I'm not going to eat him, and he may not try to just go crazy every time I see him. He's going to be the most stressed now he's ever been for what we handle, simply because of the fact that he's been in this cage, he's getting kind of cool. Good boy. I gotcha. And there he is. Right back in his cage. He's going to go where his basking rock normally is. He also likes to hide in here. We didn't have any snarling or snapping. And you can see, he's usually fairly well behaved. Mostly he just tries to get away from me when we do have to handle him. Hey. No, stop it. Usually he'll let me pick him up. And he used to fit, to give you an idea of a size reference, this guy used to fit in my hand. And you can see now, he really doesn't. You can see he's pretty upset. But he's not trying to bite me. If I were to stick my hand to the side of his face or do anything, he probably would. But he does cooperate pretty well. So that is our Paleosuchus palpebrosus. There you can see that jaw. Look. Our Cuvier's Dwarf Caiman. All right, buddy. I'll leave you be now. There you go. That's all, guys. Thanks for watching. We're going to button his cage back up and let him chill out for the rest of the day. But before we do that, why don't we hold the video, and we'll come right back and we'll give you that weight and the growth that we've had from him since we got him in our first video. Okay, so the weight is in. When we got this guy in February, he weighed 202 grams. Okay, we're 3 months later, 3 months and a week, so we've had him for literally, 13 weeks, my math is good. And in 13 weeks, he has over tripled in size, with his weight coming in today at 668 grams. So if anybody tells you, oh, Caimans don't grow very fast, well, mine has. Now you're probably looking too, as we're talking about size, and being, man, he's outgrowing that cage, and you'd be right. Our next update video will probably be us building his 125 gallon setup. So we've got that, which will over double the space. Plus we're going to try to do it differently and try to give him multiple platforms and a full water area by building things up on stilts. So we're going to see if our carpentry skills hold up. It should be really exciting. I'm really excited to get that. It's going to be a showpiece for us and for him. So thanks for watching. Do you have any questions, Kurt?
Yeah, how often should you clean the cage, and how important it is to keep the cage pretty clean?
Well, I mean, they do live in a lot of murky water in the wild, but I like to keep the cage clean. One, because of what you're going to find in there. It's poop. I mean, that's the problem. And these guys are pretty good about most of the time they defecate on land. So this is one of the first times in 3 months he's had a major anal explosion in the water. And that's what prompted this cleaning, is he really fouled his water. Now I go through probably weekly and clean the filters and clean all that out, make sure they're working good. So it's important to do your spot cleaning just like on any reptile cage. And then every so often, mostly just by visual, I decide when it's time to clean all the water. And what I mean is, if when we move something in there, if it kicks up a lot of dirt, then I'll know the water's getting fouled and the rocks are getting dirty and we'll need to get that cleaned out. And so that's kind of how I do it. Or if he has a major bowel movement in the water, because one of what they're not digesting is hair. So it just clogs up the filter instantly. It makes a big mess in there, and you're finding like floating, I found intact fish spines that he apparently pooped out, along with tons of rat hair and small pieces of bone and things like that. So that is what's floating around in there at that point in time that you really want to get out. So just kind of whenever it looks like it needs it, and within spot cleaning, I'd say probably weekly, depending on your filtration system. So that's what I would probably say is best. Anything else?
Nope.
All right, guys, thanks for watching. We've had a lot of questions about this guy. He's doing great. Again, for me, this Dwarf Caiman was really one of those dream animals. One of those things I didn't know if I'd ever be able to have, and I really wanted to get. And so these last 3 months I've had him have been quite the experience. I've got all my fingers, so that's still good. And he's been a wonderful animal. I would really recommend, if it's something you want to do, and on top of that, you have the time and you're willing to dedicate the time to it and the space to it, it's a really rewarding experience. But this should not be your first reptile, okay? And this also shouldn't be something you just kind of get spur of the moment. Do your research, know what you're getting, know it's going to live 20 years, and know you can dedicate that time, because it's really hard to give away a 4-foot angry Dwarf Caiman. I mean, nobody really wants that, except for a very select few people, and they probably already have their own. So that's my recommendation to you, is make sure you know what you're getting into. For us, it's been great, but it's definitely not for everybody. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Click that like, click that subscribe, and keep following along with what happens with good old Sobek here.